Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show, and with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He is a professional wrestling announcer, manager, color commentator, worked for ECW. I'm talking about the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner. Welcome, Joel, to Wrestling with Heart.
Thank you, Stanley. Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, you're from Brooklyn, New York. Talk to me about your childhood and upbringing.
It was fun. I was raised by TV. My parents, very loving parents, did everything for me that they were able to. Absolutely no complaints. They went above and beyond. But what that included a lot was them working. They worked more than 8 hours a day each. They both worked. And so I had babysitters. And as I got older, there was a housekeeper there to kind of watch me. And sometimes my dad was working, 12, 16 hours a day. My mom was a business owner. And I was an only child and I watched a lot of TV. It was fun, had a lot of friends, got into wrestling pretty early. Loved game shows. That was my love before wrestling, and during. But yeah, that was about it. When I got old enough, when I was a teenager, I started to trade tapes. I was a wrestling videotape trader. And it was a great childhood. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of, I guess, in many ways, it was your kind of prototypical 80s and then 90s, kind of city kid lifestyle.
What were some of your favorite game shows you used to watch?
Gosh, everything. I loved Card Sharks. I loved High Rollers and Las Vegas Gambit. I loved Pitfall, which was a cool one with these kind of elevators where if you got a question wrong, you'd go down to a lower level and then you'd have to answer a question right to come back up as you were trying to walk across a bridge.
Hmm.
Um, Gosh, there were so many great shows. I loved game show hosts they were my idols, they were my icons, and adults were always fascinated that I knew when every game show was on, what time, what channel, and who was the host. And that was I just loved the whole concept, just the whole genre.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, being fascinated with that kind of a role, I would imagine helped prepare you for the world of wrestling because you took on a variety of different roles in capacities in your time with ECW. Um, Now, you were a fan growing up of wrestling at an early age, as you mentioned. Who are some of your favorites growing up to watch?
Um, as far as wrestlers went, I loved the freakazoids. I loved the ones that were just complete cartoon characters that didn't even seem like they were real human beings. So I loved your George the Animal Steel, the Missing Link, Kamala, guys like that were awesome. And talkers, heels and talkers. So I loved Roddy Piper, Jesse the Body Ventura. I loved Howard Finkel. I was always into ring announcing. And I loved the managers. So I loved Keenan and Jimmy Hart, Cornette and Paulie. Just all of the managers I loved.
Did you have a particular favorite manager?
I really liked Paulie. I really liked Heenan. I really liked Cornette. I find that I have more of an appreciation now for for completely different reasons Gary Hart than I did back then, and also luscious Johnny Valiant. As the years have been going by, there are certain managers who I still loved their work back then, but I see an even greater kind of just gravitation towards as the years are going by. So I would put Gary Hart and Johnny Valiant in that bucket.
What was it about their work that made you go, I really think this is amazing what they're doing. I kind of want to implement this into my own style.
Probably just the fact that, I think I was always destined. It was always my calling, and it was always my goal to get into pro wrestling. I always thought that I could do it. I always thought that the only reason I wasn't in wrestling yet was chronological. It was my age. Can't go on the road at age 14, 15, 16. So you're too young. So I just always felt like one day when the time comes and the time is right, this will be something that I'm doing. And as such, knowing that I'm not a natural athlete, I knew that, being a wrestler per se was not going to be for me. That wasn't my bread and butter. So I knew that, the way to get to be a pro wrestling personality was going to be as a talker, as a hype guy, as a manager, ring announcer, and so those are the people that I emulated, and those are the people that I absolutely admired.
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about the wrestling business is that there's so many different roles. You don't have to just be a competitor. You can be a manager or an announcer, a commentator. And the managers, I feel like today, in my opinion, I feel like it's sorely missing. I think it's good to have managers as that hype man or hype woman, to be there as like the to complement the wrestler. Paul Heyman's one of those guys. Cornette's another one. Jimmy Hart, goodness gracious, and Paul Bearer, Bobby Heenan, some of the greats that were able to help wrestlers get to that next level. Definitely something we need to see more of today is the manager. So, what age did you get started in the wrestling business?
Sometimes I try to take a step back and remember. I wish I had it kind of landmarked and milestone, and I wish I remembered everything was happening so quick. And I had already been a tape trader, and I was kind of reading newsletters, and I don't really have an exact month, day, and year that I know that I started. And what's funny about that is I also don't know exactly when I started watching wrestling, because from the moment I started, I was watching it forwards and backwards. I was watching it episodically every week as it was happening in the present going into the future. And then I was also catching up and archiving and watching stuff that I hadn't seen yet. So I I always thought I started around my 16th birthday in September of 91. Then I didn't want to take credit for even one year that I wasn't in as talent. So I shifted towards considering my start time as more around September of 92. And then Panther Rodriguez, who went to the same school and gym, wrestling gym that I did, the Lower East Side Wrestling Gym, he swears that he has footage from a show in 91 that I am a part of. So since he's told me that this year, I'm kind of going back to September of 91. I think I've thought about some things in my life that kind of are landmarks and milestones. And I think I'm going to go back and consider it a start in September 91. So we are a couple of months away from me celebrating my 34 years in pro wrestling.
That's so amazing. That long and to be able to have those memories, uh, it's incredible. Now, walk me through training, uh, and how you got your start. Do you recall going to a school and finding out, the number to call or to look at an ad? What can you tell me about your how you got in the business?
Yeah, I found out about the Lower East Side Wrestling Gym in the Wrestling Chatterbox newsletter, which Georgianne Macropolis wrote. Found out about it. Don't remember if I called or if it was the kind of thing that I was told you could just show up, sign up. I don't know that I ever really paid for instruction, and I really didn't get much in the way as it pertains to, the physicality. I didn't get so much of that kind of instruction. I did a lesson or two. I remember that. I did learn how to take a back bump. I did learn how to run the ropes. So I learned some of the fundamentals, but learned how to tuck your chin. Um, that was about it. From there, there were shows every 4 weeks or every month, thereabouts, at the school, which was basically the lobby level, the down to the low, I guess the first floor, the lobby level, the walk-in kind of level of one of the buildings of the Baruch housing projects, on the Lower East Side in the city, uh, FDR Drive and Houston Street, FDR and East Houston. Um, so yeah, I showed up. Their monthly shows I was a part of, whatever needed to be done. Refereed a few, ring announced, and became a manager under the name of Joey Jaguar, and managed a few heels, and then yeah, went off to college and kept taking indie bookings during the summers, and eventually asked for a job in ECW. Was blessed to get an opportunity. That's it. That's my story.
Now, when you start in the business, you take these bumps and you start managing. Any pieces of advice your trainers gave you that you still recall today?
Got your chin. Fall in one piece. The same way they say it hurts less if you're lying on a bed of nails, if you're kind of spread out evenly. It hurts less when you fall, when you take a back bump, if you don't favor any one part of your body, but if you fall as flat as possible. So fall in one piece, tuck your chin to protect your neck. Um, that's about it. I learned on the job, man. I gave it the office. There was a period of time where I was not just taking my manager bumps, like rolling off the apron to the floor and stuff that, managers do, kind of, getting tossed around by baby faces, just in general as a manager. But I mean, I was taking the finish of every baby face in the back, everybody on the roster. I was taking finish after finish after finish, and then chair shots and vacuum cleaners and getting put through tables and just whatever,
Yeah.
whatever young people do when they think they're immortal.
Well, did you have any mentors that kind of guided you along as you got your start?
Paul himself. I consider Paul my mentor. Paul, we had a lot of cool and smart, Scotty Raven was always there to help. You don't need to really even ask him to put 2 cents in. He's glad to do it. Tommy, super helpful to everybody in the back. When I found out that he was working for WWE as talent relations in later years, it didn't surprise me at all because he was kind of a de facto, unofficial talent relations in ECW. Um, and all the veterans that came in, gosh, I mean, we had a lot of territory guys. We had Shane and we had Rick Rude, we had Bam Bam, everybody. I was happy. I had an idea of, I mean, as a tape trader and a newsletter reader, um, I knew kind of, who to keep an eye out for and listen to, and whose brain to pick. And Paul just kept bringing in people that were suited for that, people that fit that mold. So I was a kid in a candy store, just kind of learning and asking questions. And one night everybody was going out, and I had the opportunity instead to hang out and had one man gang as a guest in my hotel room hanging out. I don't remember if it was like he needed a place to cry. I don't remember, but like it was spend a few hours out in whatever town or spend a few hours picking the brain of one man gang. So I decided to do that because that's a once in a lifetime experience as far as I'm concerned. And so yeah, I had a ton of mentors, but really I think no one more so than Paul Heyman himself.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like ECW was like this family environment. You know, everybody wanted to root each other on and cheer for each other and want everybody to be successful. And I think that's why all these years later, the legacy of ECW is so fondly looked back on. And people still talk about like all those moments from in the 90s and early 2000s of what ECW really, meant to the fans. Is just this really iconic promotion. And I think there's, it really, there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. It's, people still seek it out. People who haven't seen the anthology yet are watching it now for the first time. People still chant it. People still love it and look back fondly on it. And I agree absolutely wholeheartedly that ECW. It seems like I as a tape trader and as somebody who started watching wrestling in the '80s, I have this special place in my heart for world class championship wrestling in Dallas and Mid South in Tulsa and Bill Watts and his territory and Memphis. And it's great to realize, and I appreciate to the utmost how many people out there, what Memphis is to me, what world class is to me. ECW, whether it's because of chronology, whether it's because of geography, ECW is that for them. And that's, I never take that for granted.
Do you still keep up with your friends, your buddies from ECW? Who have been some of the people you've gotten to keep in touch with over the years that you still talk to?
I do. I speak to everybody. Um, I speak to Meanie all the time. Blue Meanie, he's a good friend of mine. He was at my wedding, and we hang out every few weeks or every few months whenever schedule allows. But I talk to him on pretty much a daily basis. He's in like a Facebook Messenger group chat that we all just shoot the shit in a few times a day. So I'm always in touch with Meanie, and other guys kind of if there's a reason to call, or if it's just been a while, or if we see each other at shows. I see Francine quite a bit. I see Sandman quite a bit. Bill Alfonso. Um, I try to catch up with Bubba. Bubba's a tough nut to crack for me because the dynamic with the Dudleys and me, it was always kind of Bubba was bad cop and Devon was good cop. So I find myself, I think, catching up with and talking to Devon a bit more than Bubba. I see Dreamer here and there on shows that we're booked on. Um, yeah, so yeah, I try to keep up with everybody. I get along with everybody. And obviously, just like high school reunions and whatnot, I wish we all saw each other more often even than we do. But it's always great when we do hang out because it's like we've missed no time at all.
It's a wonderful feeling to have when you catch up with people you hadn't seen in a long time and just picked up right back where you left off. Now, one of your first angles that you worked in ECW was getting to work with Shane Douglas. Tell me about how you guys got paired up, and what was it like working together?
The creative on that, I think, was all Paul. Um, I mean, there may have been contributions from Shane, or I don't know. Um, at that point I was still so new and so young that it was kind of do what you're told, speak when spoken to. At least that's the way I always treated it as a non-wrestler, not to get any heat. So I wasn't making a whole lot of suggestions. I was writing my own stuff, but I wasn't really, here and there, few and far between, I'd make a suggestion. But I think when I was working with Shane, not yet so much. Um, yeah, we it was, Paul put it together. It was all classic. I mean, the stuff with Pitbull #1 and his Halo, and Todd Gordon and me getting into a spat. And it was working with Shane was just a dream come true. I mean, I'd watched him in WCW, late '80s, early '90s. I was, a tape trader in 1990 when, he was on the WWF shows at MSG, and I was even familiar with his work, obviously going back to Bill Watts territory. So it was just humbling, and it was probably one of the first times that I could take a step back and say, you know what, based on who you're out there with, you are now officially in the wrestling business. You've made it to a certain level. I think working with Shane gives you that kind of perspective.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to be with people that have been around for a long time, that are veterans, and know how to uh, kind of guide the new talent along, the new guys along, to lift them up. And I think that Shane definitely is one of those guys that was able to help get the new guys catapulted to success. And do you feel, I know you spent most of your time in ECW as a heel, do you feel that it's easier to get booed than it is to get cheered?
It's fun being a heel. Um, Once you're respected, and once your work rate, which, if that's a term, I think that's a term that can be used for a non-wrestler, that they even themselves have kind of a work rate as far as just a proficiency and kind of a level of achievement, level of excellence. And not to toot my own horn, but once you've once you're a proven commodity, once you're time tested, once you've shown a versatility, I think it's, for me, I guess maybe it was just as easy to get over as a heel as it was as a babyface. But there's something fun about being a heel. Um, I don't know. It's just that, that acting part, that getting to live a second life part of just being able to kind of be an asshole but not mean it, like be an asshole in kind of a fake context where, you're out there trying over to get across the point that you want to hurt somebody, but really at the end of the day, we're all going to go out and have a beer after the show and nobody's getting hurt, hopefully. So there's just, I've always loved being a heel, but I just love performing. I just love the challenge of performing. I just love tapping into that elevated, escalated version of me, where you're out there and you're on display and you're being evaluated and you're being judged and you're being seen, you're being appreciated, you're being, just all of it. It's just there. It's a challenge, and there's a certain kind of intensity to it, and it's I'm sure it's the same kind of, I love gambling, and there's a certain level of dopamine that you get when you win a bet, and performing is similar but different. There's a different but still kind of a level of dopamine that you get, and it's better than any kind of drug or substance. It's just a natural, emotional, kind of physiological, psychological kind of burst that you get And so, I'm still out there performing now, and I love it. I mean, I hope I don't see an end in sight.
Now, you were known to also cut some really intense promos, of course, during your time in ECW. Did you come up with those yourself?
For the most part, yeah, 98, 99%.
You really have to, come up with stuff that's going to get the crowd to turn on you so that you get that reaction. You want to get that reaction every time you come out there. So you got to find something that's really going to egg them on, to boo as much as possible. So in this day and time, I mean, do you feel it's harder to be a heel if you watch the current product? Do you feel is it harder to get booed rather than getting cheered? Because it seems like a lot of heels now, they get a lot of positive reactions or cheers.
I don't know that it's harder. It could be easier because there's social media out there during the week in between shows for you to keep your character, promoted. Um, I don't think it can. I don't think it is harder, so to speak. Um, no, I mean it's no harder to build a house. It's no harder to, uh, herd cats, and it's no harder to get over as a heel. I don't think. I think a lot of people get in their own way, and they want to be that kind of babyface heel, that kind of Steve Austin before they were forced to turn him. A lot of people just want kind of the acclaim and the accolades, and for it to be kind of more of a positive babyface reaction. So I think these days a lot of people are maybe more afraid of being a heel, or they don't think that there's as much payoff in it. Maybe even financially. I mean, maybe a lot of guys are looking to sell merch, and they'd rather be a baby face because a baby face is going to sell more T-shirts and 8x10s. In the territory days, heels didn't really go out and even have a chance to sell stuff. So, um, long story short, I think as long as you do your due diligence, learn the business, study, emulate the greats, be yourself though, and put the work in. I think anybody who you gotta kind of have a natural proclivity. They say when they're hiring, they say you have to have it, and in a sense, you kind of do. I'm sure there are some people out there who are not cut out to be pro wrestling personalities. There are some people who, within pro wrestling personalities, are not cut out to excel as heels, or are better suited as baby faces. But I think the same kind of person that would have had it in them 25 years ago to be a good heel, I think they have every opportunity and then some to be a good heel now.
To you, what makes such a good heel?
You have so first you have to check all of the boxes that make you a great wrestling personality in general. You have to be great at doing it heel or babyface first. And that is to tap into psychology, to have good uh, intonation, intent, to connect and communicate with people on a level that is going to set something off in their mind to where they can relate to you in the way that people relate to heels, which is they have that kind of general dislike, disdain. Gosh, I hope nobody thinks I'm like this person. This person's awful, vile, reprehensible. Um, you have to be able to, and you've got to be different. You've got to be unique, and you've got to be special. You've got to be a good wrestling personality. You can't just be that that person across the street that is kind of just a person, doesn't seem to have any purpose in the moment. is just sitting on a bench, not looking particularly pensive, not looking particularly anything, nondescript, and just sometimes people aren't even that way. But to us, we're so busy that somebody kind of grabs our eye, but there's no reason to hone in and focus on them. So we don't. You can't come across that way. You have to come across as a character in a movie. You have to come across as box office relevant. You have to come across as somebody who people would want to get to know, be friendly with, um, have a drink with, that kind of thing. So to be a great heel, you have to kind of just be on a certain level, um, where you're just completely different. You're just out in, I was saying before that Johnny Valiant, Luscious Johnny V, that I have a greater appreciation for his work now than I did back in the day. If you listen to his promos, just like Randy Savage, like he's in outer space. Like he's not a real person. Like he's like, you're not gonna get on the B9 bus and sit down next to Luscious Johnny Valiant. You wouldn't, because he travels through different universes and realms and galaxies. He's on a different super highway. That's just how he governed himself. That's just how he carried himself, and that's just how he spoke. You know, parlez-vous scrambled eggs, grandma doesn't mean anything, but when he says it, it's like his declaration of independence. And so you have to be a good heel, you have to psychologically make a wrestling fan who bought a ticket to a show suspend disbelief and believe that you are almost parallel to being a human being. Almost, you don't walk in the same circles, you don't eat at the same restaurants that they do. You are just this kind of character. It's I guess TNT was always about drama and USA was always about characters. And there's a reason for both of those. You have to make people feel, and you have to act as a special entity, and you have to be a unique character.
Yeah, I think that's important to have those that range that you're talking about. For me, I think a good example of the modern era uh, was Bray Wyatt. I think the way he was able to have this demeanor and this character that I feel like was so eye-opening with, the cult leader gimmick, and then of course the Fiend, and just being able to, like, what did he say? What's going on here with the lights and the, everything like that. I mean, to see what he was able to do in a short period of time was just jaw-dropping because he made you feel something.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, every week when he was on, he would talk about these things, talking riddles and rhymes and talk about, cut these promos, these scathing promos. I'm like, what's he gonna do next week? What's this leading up to? And then the whole thing with the Wyatt family, that built up, and so when you had like him, be like, the Firefly Funhouse with that, with this cast of characters, seeing, all the puppets and everything like that. And then you see what that evolved to. I was like, man, where's this going? I think that's amazing to see the range that he was able to have. Really be this intense personality and persona that he was able to carry for those years.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think there's definitely important to have that. It's important to have that depth, that range, when you're trying to play this character and be this persona. Uh, and I think fans to this day they still talk about the Wyatt family and Bray's character and how that was just so relatable. You know. Now, there was a period of your time you're talking about the Dudley boys earlier. You worked with the Dudleys, even had a neck brace, came out with a neck brace. How did that all come about?
The neck brace was the product of me taking Total Elimination, the Eliminator's finishing move, uh, at our first pay per view, Barely Legal, in April of '97. And of course, if you're going to wear a neck brace, still need to be a gentleman, still need to dress with fashion, and you're still going to wear your bow tie. So I would wear the bow tie over the neck brace.
And you got to convince people that what you had suffered was real. You know, you took this nasty bump from the Eliminators, and you had to be like, this hurts. And how do I get people to believe what's going on here?
Yeah, and for the first 2 weeks, I wore a neck brace, a hard one, um, even in my personal business, even during my personal day. So if I was at the supermarket, I was wearing a neck brace, and I did that for the 2 weeks or so after the show.
I'd imagine that's hard. I mean, that takes commitment being able to stay in character in real life because you're basically telling people, "Hey, this happened, but I'm okay actually." You gotta really like commit. That takes a lot of dedication.
Yeah. Yeah, but such is the life, you know what I mean? Like it all just being in the pro wrestling business, at that point, if you're in it at a certain level with a certain frequency, um, you're committed anyway. You're just you're all in, and so yeah, it's that's just you don't even question stuff like doing stuff to keep kayfabe or protect your gimmick, especially the keeping kayfabe part was in '97 it was a lot more of a concern I think than it is now. But yeah, it was just the price of doing business. It was just you know the nature of it.
Do you feel social media has made it harder to stay in character because of all the instant communication? Do you feel like it's possible to still remain in character in certain aspects today?
I think it depends what you do. I think it depends on how you govern it. I think like anything. I think I mean every individual makes their own personal choices, and I feel like social media can help you, and social media can hurt you. And I think it's all just you've got to make sure you're governing it how you want and need to. And I think it's just a function of it's a sausage maker. It's just to an extent what you put in is what you're going to get out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's helped really also boost the careers of up and coming wrestlers who then go on to be big stars. Matt Cardona is a great example of that, being able to take that following, have that following, and really skyrocket. And he's doing really big things right now on the independents. Um, how long were you with ECW? Were you there throughout the duration of the promotion's existence?
I was there until the end. I started in September of '95, so I was in ECW for 5.5 years.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what a run you had. I mean, working with Shane, working with the Dudleys, worked with Joey Styles on commentary, hosted the programs. Um, you did so many things for ECW. It's unbelievable. Definitely helped create that legacy. It was definitely a part of that legacy. Talk to me about when you found out about ECW's closure. I mean, I'm sure it had to have hit you hard, you know?
Yeah, it was tough. I remember we were at the last pay per view, the January 2001 one, in Manhattan,
It's guilty
and
as charged.
yeah, and I was sitting in the back, just kind of dejected. Um, and at the time, I was starting to manage Christian York and Joey Matthews, and they were there, and they kind of came up to me and they were like, "What's wrong? You all right?" And I looked at them. I was like, "If you guys would have only got here 2, 3 years ago," and I just kind of that's all I said. I said that to them, and I remember just saying that and kind of sitting back and just taking it all in and shaking my head. And it seemed like we were kind of at the end of our rope. um and then that same day, I remember I was outside the building in our production truck, in the war truck, and I remember they had the Living Dangerously graphic on one of the screens for the upcoming March show that didn't happen. And I remember I was walking out of the truck down the steps, and Paul was there. And I was coming to the studio every week to do commentary, to do post production. And I kind of asked him, scheduling wise, for this week, what are we doing? When do you want me there? That kind of thing. And he was like, there's going to be a little bit of downtime. And, after you do a certain thing every week for, a year and a half, it was just kind of surprising to hear that. And, like you say, it just, times weren't great. I mean, it was as you could imagine.
Yeah, I mean it's never a good feeling when you know that a chapter of your life is about to end. I mean, ECW was around for 8.5 years. And you were there for a good chunk of its time. I mean, so many guys, so many superstars that were able to eventually make it over into other companies. But what a loss. I mean, you had WCW go under not too long after this. I'm sure the locker room was the rest of the other guys in the locker room were devastated.
It was tough.
Um, Now I know you had appeared at the first one night stand. Talk to me about what it was like getting back together with the your friends and colleagues.
It was great. And, meeting new people, meeting people that were working with WWE at the time, and, getting to take instruction from Vince. We were kind of before the show, we were doing a little run through, little rehearsal, and got some pointers from Vince. Got to introduce myself to him when I got to the building. Um, which at the time, as somebody who grew up in the '80s in Brooklyn in the WWF territory, and as somebody who, as a teenager, right before getting into the business, and even kind of, I think, while I was getting into the business, just going to Monday Night Raw at the Hammerstein Ballroom, um, just to be working there in my hometown, in a wrestling building, in a WWE building, on a WWE produced pay per view. It was surreal. It was, my career highlight up until that point in time. And I loved that show. I had a lot of fun. Great to see everybody again. Great to breathe life into ECW for the first time in 4.5 years. And, just amazing. Just a great time.
Did they ever approach you? WWE ever approach you about wanting to come on board? Did they ever have an idea for you to join as a manager or personality or
Tommy told me to treat it as an audition. Every time I go through the curtain, I treat it like it's the first time I've ever done it. I treat it like it's the last time I might ever do it. So I was, I was going to treat it like an audition anyway. But Tommy did preface with that. Um, I spoke to Terry Taylor in whenever it was, 98, 99, before I signed my contract and before TNN, and talked with him briefly. He said he had interest in bringing me in with the Public Enemy, and he threw some numbers at me. Um, was there any interest in them bringing me in as a manager after the 2005 appearance? I don't know. I mean, Tommy said treat it as an audition. I did. Um, I didn't hear anything after the show, so I don't think they were so interested. So I don't know. You
It, it,
never know. Should I have pursued more? I don't ever want to be that guy. Like if Tommy knew where to find me, Tommy knew my phone number. Tommy was talent relations. So I don't. I never wanted to be that guy that even if it's not nepotism and even if it's not favoritism and even if it's not politics, even if it is getting over on your merits and talent, I never wanted to be that guy that kind of tried to, you know, even when I got the ECW gig, it wasn't so much because I was trying to shove myself into the door. It was just, as a gentleman, I kind of just asked for an opportunity to audition as a timekeeper. Hey, if your regular timekeeper ring announcer isn't going to be there, and if you're going to be strapped running around looking for somebody anyway, can I be that somebody? You can count on me to be there. For me, asking for the ECW job that way was different from let me pick up the phone and let me try to, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's me seeming disinterested or aloof or not pursuing enough or them not being interested enough at the time or creative not having anything for me that wasn't ECW related. I don't know, so I get asked all the time, how come you haven't had a regular long term full time run with an organization other than ECW? And I don't have the answer to that question, so I can't give the answer.
well, there's been so many tag teams and a lot of talent out there in the last 20 plus years since you were involved with ECW. Who are some people today where you go, man, I would love to work with this guy?
There are so many. I mean, gosh, I, the fan in me still gravitates towards the wrestler who can speak for themselves. And in this day and age, they're never going to put a manager with somebody like that. Back in the 90s, when they brought in Ric Flair, they put him with Bobby Heenan just so it was double trouble. And you had, one guy talking for another that didn't need it. Kind of like when Bubba started talking on his own, and it was kind of me and him kind of, starting riots because, if the left one don't get you, the right one will. They don't now, if a guy can speak for himself, like LA Knight, for example, he's a baby face. If a guy can speak for himself, like MJF, then he can be associated with a stable or a faction, but he doesn't need a manager to talk for him. So to ask who I would want to manage, um, I'd be happy to manage. There are countless acts that, if creative, thought that they could use some help. I'd love to be that for them. But there are so many that I don't know that I would want to list any.
It definitely seems like the manager is just, it's like this lost art, you know? You don't really hear a lot of people really talk about managers these days. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, there are some managers. There's Paul. There's MVP. There's Stokely. There are some still, but they're definitely fewer and further between. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just a level of expectation where the bar has been set to where, in general, they want their sports entertainers to be able to talk for themselves, so to speak. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if they feel like manager heat is best concentrated amongst a few so that it doesn't disperse and so that you don't have too many managers that aren't as over. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the manager really helps play off the talent well. I mean, I think it really counteracts and makes it good for a dynamic, you know. Definitely something that you could have one guy play off another, and I feel like it gets the act over with the fans. Um, I want to switch now and talk about some of the stuff you've done outside of the ring. I know you've been involved with doing a lot of charity work and volunteering, especially I've seen some of your stuff that you've been doing with the St. Jude Children's Hospital. What made you get involved with that and start participating with the organization?
In 2010, at the very beginning of the year, Georgianne Macropolis, I mentioned her earlier in the interview, she wrote a newsletter called The Wrestling Chatterbox. At one time, she was Bruno Sammartino's fan club president. She was a mainstay on the independent circuit in New York City. She passed away in January of 2010. I couldn't go to her services. I decided that I was going to make a donation, that it would be to honor her, it would be in her name. And I donated, and I looked around at different charities. I settled on St. Jude. I liked what they did. I liked their purpose. I liked their mission. I liked their execution. I liked what I saw about them in the due diligence that I did. So I donated $100 a month for every month of calendar 2000.
Wow.
And as like you say, with social media and different platforms, and just as the years have gone by, I love collecting. I love um, figures and trading cards and anything, any tokens, anything physical that has to do with I love just I mean, I collect wrestling, I collect baseball, I collect entertainment, I collect a whole different bunch of stuff. I've from back in the day, I've got comic books, I've got coins. But long story short, um, I decided to start with an inventory budget of $50, and we bought like, I don't know, three things for like $15 a piece. And people donated inventory. They donated wrestling cards that they didn't want or need anymore. People still do that. And we still bring in inventory, and we try to grow the inventory budget little by little so that we're not taking away from what goes to the kids. For a nonprofit, I think we do very, very well. One month we were, I think, over 95% of what was donated at the auction went to the charity, which is like better than some nonprofits are out there doing 80%. So yeah, we just little by little, little engine that could, and we keep kind of building it, and month to month it gets bigger. We're doing it about every 3 weeks now. Um, and we do Funkos, we do action figures, we do trading cards, we do magazines. We keep it eclectic, we keep it diverse, we keep it fun. We are on pace for $4,000 this year in 2025. And yeah, it's just it's a blast. It's just, and it keeps me busy. I'm always at the post office, I'm always doing the accounting, I'm always it's a one man. I mean, for an operation that doesn't really exceed $350 in any given month, it certainly feels like you know it feels like a $3,000 a month thing. It's not that right now, but it keeps me busy. Uh, keeps my mind just occupied. And but more importantly, hopefully it makes a dent. And every once in a while I like to think about, hey, today, maybe some parents who are at St. Jude's for their kid, maybe they're getting to eat a lunch, have a dinner, maybe there's a procedure that needs to happen, maybe there are supplies that need to be bought, whatever it is. Every once in a while I wonder if some of our money is helping, and you feel good about that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels good to give back, especially to people that are going through so many things and are struggling and are sick, have an illness. Um, Definitely seems like there's a lot that goes into what you're doing. Was there a particular event during your time working with St. Jude, whether it was helping someone out at a drive or whatever you were whatever it was there like a time that you were able to pay it forward to someone that was very heartwarming?
I just I don't the I just kind of never really thought about that. It's a great question. Um
Thank you.
it's a really good question. It's a deep question, really. Um all of it for me is, I only you never know the good that you're doing. And I've never gotten an opportunity to meet someone who's been helped personally by St. Jude, let alone, there's no way of ever knowing if they were personally helped by the funds that we have helped. It's just a cumulative, like I'll catch myself, I'm watching a YouTube video and a St. Jude ad comes on, and I'll catch myself watching the whole ad rather than skipping it. Or I'll catch myself watching a TV ad for St. Jude and watching the whole ad. And you begin to kind of feel like what you're doing isn't just numbers and math and a tote board and a score, but you see the impact and that it's making a difference. And I get calendars and notepads and stuff in the mail. We've gotten a t-shirt in the mail, and I just hope that it helps as many people as it can. Um, that's probably the deepest and most profound level that I've ever thought about it at. Um, Aside from the auctions, which are virtual and which I'm blessed to be able to do in the comfort of my own living room, I haven't done any other kind of in person, kind of on location drives. Um, I wish I had. I might going forward, but at present, I'm just happy to believe, to know that what we're doing helps compound the stockpile of St. Jude so that they can fulfill their promise to the people that they help, that those people will never get a bill for anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, when you're able to help someone that is just in need. And you see these kids that are going through so many things in their life, to have a card or an action figure, it in spreading kindness just goes a long way. You just never know what someone is going through. What is your ultimate goal with this project?
onward and upward. Just keep pushing forward, keep making it bigger. Have have more fun with it. Get more people to be at the auctions. Get more people to bid, and just have people realize that this is something that they can do on the same scale, on a bigger scale, on a smaller scale. Every little bit helps, and just to raise awareness, and just to contribute to that kind of charitable culture.
Yeah. What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
I think it's that you're showing a oneness and a bond and a kindredness with people who are experiencing something that isn't a choice they made, certainly isn't the result of karma, but instead it's a tough, adverse, difficult circumstance that they are having to navigate. And you're showing them that there are people out there who are interested in making a difference and alleviating your burden on just that kind of superficial. We live in a capitalist society, so it's medicine is bought with currency, hospital stay is bought with currency. That's how it is. Dogs and cats understand it. They'll go up to a meat stand and they'll have a leaf in their mouth to trade to the proprietor in exchange for a piece of meat. So if dogs and cats get it, I think we all know that that's how the world works. And for any of those of us who have extra, who can help alleviate the burden of somebody that needs it and can use it, I think it's just a kind of, it's just being human.
Yeah, definitely, definitely well said. We need to be treating each other the best that we can and spread the wealth so that we all live happy and healthy and try to make the world a better place. Joel, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. I want to say thank you so much for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find out more about you on social media? And if there's anything you want to plug, feel free.
So those St. Jude auctions, they happen about every 3 weeks. We're having one on the 31st of July. I think it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. They're on my main Facebook page. So facebook.com/M as in marshmallow, X as in X-ray, W as in wrestling, Joel Gertner. So facebook.com/MXW Joel Gertner, my main Facebook page. Elsewhere on social media, my shadow and fingerprint includes X, where I am at Stud Muffin Says. On Instagram, I am Quintessential Stud Muffin. On TikTok, I am Quintessential Stud Muffin. I'm on Cameo as Joel Gertner. No, I'm forgetting something. Those are the main ones. And please come say hey. Let me know that you heard this interview and watched this show. And yeah, absolutely join us for our auctions, bid on some great lots, win some amazing prizes, and be part of our campaign, be part of our drive to help St. Jude.
All right. Definitely will be a part of that for sure. Thanks again, Joel, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Thank you.
All right, take care. This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.